is Mike Spells, and I'm here to talk to you about my life and my travels and how you can travel inexpensively by some of the tips that I might give you later on. But first, I want to start out with my beginning. I was born in April 21st, 1964. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised there. And I was in the Red Hook projects, which were the first projects ever built in New York City. And I would live also with my grandmother, who lived in Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And I would travel there. I guess 50% of the time I lived at both places. I spent most of my time with my grandmother and grandfather. And I had many friends from all different races, from Chinese, Puerto Rican, Jewish, Italian, Jamaicans, and all the islands. And at 7 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and what I was destined to do, and that was to travel. My friends and I were, we were pretty poor. I mean, we didn't have much at all. And we used to play at my favorite places, which was the Brooklyn Public Museum, the Brooklyn Public Library, and the Botanical Gardens. And that's why it's amazing. It always kept us out of trouble by playing in these places, and they were free. So it was a wonderful place to go. And it was in a location called Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. So it was really colorful and a nice place to visit. Little did I know that my upbringing would foster my affinity for travel, which is truly my passion today. I love to travel. And I would walk through the museum and look at all the artwork, which I love. Around my house, I have a lot of artwork, and that's because of how I was brought up. And I noticed the many countries that the artists were from, and I also like to draw. So when I saw those countries, I said, "This is where I want to go." It was beautiful. And I went to high school in Queens. I lived in Laurelton, Queens. I lived in Lefrak City, Queens. And Laurelton is near Jamaica, Queens. So I lived in these environments, and it was pretty nice. But it had some issues there. But I entered the United States Air Force in March of '83, and I haven't been out of the country at all at this time. I was stationed upstate New York, where I met this woman and I got married, and that was wonderful. And in 1984, I went to Okinawa, Japan for 4 years, and this was a tropical, wonderful place, even though I wanted to get back to the States, but I didn't realize I was living, oh, what a wonderful life. Then I had a child over there in Japan before I left. That's Okinawa, and that was in 1988. I had my daughter, and I tell you, I was a supply airman, and I worked for the AWACS aircraft over in Japan. And when I got there, my obsession for travel really started to blow up. I traveled to mainland Japan. I traveled to Korea, Philippines, and Thailand. I was in Hawaii, and I left there in 1989, and I went to Frankfurt, Germany, where I traveled to the Netherlands, France, Spain, Italy, Belgium, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and to England, to East Germany, to Turkey, to Poland, Scotland, and Ireland, and Czechoslovakia. I left active duty in December of 1991, and I joined the reserves, which was in Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. And then I traveled on my own to all of the Caribbean islands, to include St. Kitts, St. Thomas, Puerto Rico, I've been to many times, to St. Martin, to Barbados, to Trinidad, to Tobago, to Mexico and Jamaica. And then I traveled to Cuba via Mexico. I traveled to, I've seen all of Central America, which I love. Central America to include Panama, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Belize. And just recently I returned from Nicaragua, which was a wonderful trip. I traveled, quite a bit to South America, to include to Brazil several times, to Argentina, Colombia, which was a wonderful trip, to Venezuela, to Uruguay, and to Peru. Break